mother-daughter behavior. I like that. I saw your t-shirt. That was cute. Mother-daughter behavior and has strong relationship with both of her daughters, encouraging them to go after their goals and dreams. She's also an adult child of adoption of an interracial family. Did I say that right? Okay. A certified domestic violence and sexual assault advocate, graduate student in clinical mental health counseling, and a published author. Serena is a God-loving woman who has been truly blessed. Serena Martin is the CEO and founder of Mahogany Cares, Community Awareness Resources, Education, and Support Foundation, Inc., a local nonprofit with a mission to end the generational cycles of domestic and sexual violence and abuse. 10 years employed with Milwaukee SATC, Sexual Assault Treatment Center team, as an advocacy coordinator, healing advocate. You got a lot of stuff. My tongue is stuck to the side. Where she supported survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Serena is committed to bringing forth awareness and empowering women and girls, focusing on wellness, mind, body, spirit, and family. She's a survivor who has dedicated her life to vowing to advocate for the remaining victims, loving and honoring fellow survivors, and never forgetting the loved ones we have lost. Serena is willing to speak, motivate, inspire, and advocate for domestic violence matters. Serena's favorite quote: "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty." Maya Angelou. So without further ado, come on over here, Serena.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming out today. This is day one of a day of healing and release during our Sexual Assault Awareness Month 2025. We are here honoring survivors. We are supporting our providers and all those that have someone maybe that they love or care about that has been through a traumatic experience. Today we want to learn from the experts. We have an amazing panel providing their expertise and their experiences from medical, from counseling, a male perspective, and advocacy. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what they have to say and share with us and how we can better support anyone that's experienced sexual assault. So without further ado, we're going to bring up our panelists. We are going to start with Dr. Kaylin Moore. Yes, she just recently did her dissertation and she has her PhD. So Kaylin Moore recently completed her PhD in nursing at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Kaylin has practiced as a registered nurse for 21 years with experience in specialty fields of critical care and forensic nursing. Within her career, she has cared for survivors and perpetrators of violent crimes. Informed by practice, Kaylin's research examines how African American women navigate the system of healthcare and law enforcement after experiencing intimate partner violence. Kaylin contributes to improving nurse practices, education, and trauma-informed care for survivors through authorship, curriculum development, and in serving as a professional mentor for novice sexual assault nurse examiners through the University of Minnesota. Currently, she holds a research position with the Health Resources and Services Administration, successfully training and retention of SANE STARS grant at UWM in Milwaukee. Let's welcome Kaylin. Our next panelist, Mr. Teron Edwards, is the founder and executive president of Fathers Making Progress. Teron has over 20 years experience designing and implementing programs for fathers and families through workforce, parenting classes, anger management classes, mentoring programs, lobbying, and community organizing. Teron is trained in over a dozen different fatherhood, coaching, and workforce curricula, and has provided training for many that are now doing fatherhood work in our community and across the nation. Teron has consulted and facilitated workshops for fathers and organizations across the country and even in the Caribbean. In addition to his community work, Teron has been a youth football coach and is a proud husband, father, and has a minor in psychology from Springfield College with dozens of accompanying post-secondary leadership internships, cohorts, and accomplishments. Let's welcome Teron. Yes, thank you. Next is my little big sis, Nancy Yarbrough, a nationally recognized speaker, author, advocate with over 15 years of experience providing trauma-informed, survivor-led training across multiple sectors, including law enforcement, public and private schools, faith-based institutions, nonprofit and government agencies, and for-profit organizations. As the founder and executive director of Fresh Start Learning, Inc., Nancy has developed and led multidisciplinary programs focused on human trafficking prevention, substance use recovery, transitional living, and survivor reentry. A lived experience expert and certified alcohol and drug abuse counselor, Nancy combines professional insight with personal resilience to deliver impact trainings that inspire systemic change and equip frontline professionals to respond with compassion, strategy, and lasting impact. Her work bridges gaps between community, policy, and practice, centering survivor voices at every step. Nancy Yarbrough. And last but not least, Patrice Macbeth, a clinical mental health counselor specializing in trauma, an author, mental health consultant, and trainer. With a background in education and social services, Patrice's career has been dedicated to developing hope, healing, and empowerment to individuals, families, groups, and our communities. Patrice has worked for, partnered, and collaborated with community agencies to conduct trainings, individual and group counseling sessions to victims of crime. She is passionate about working with individuals who have endured trafficking, substance abuse, domestic and sexual violence. Helping to empower them has assisted in creating and implementing a cultural specific curriculum geared towards training clinicians of color to work with victims and intimate partner violence. She leads with empathy, integrity, and competence. Patrice brings an evoking perspective gained from her extensive work history and personal experience that will empower and unleash untapped potential in this present. Miss Patrice.
All right. Okay, well, welcome everybody to this panel this morning. I am so excited to really hear some of the things that you have to say as far as from the therapy side to the medical and clinical side. This is going to be very interesting to all of us and those of us watching on live stream. So go ahead and kick it off.
Let's kick it off with our doctor, Kaylin Moore. As a nurse trained to respond to survivors in some of their most vulnerable moments, how did you come into this vital work, and what keeps you grounded in it?
That's a long story.
You can take the mic off. You can take the mic off the stand if it's better for you.
Like only a minute, so.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
So it started really in childhood. I had an interest in forensic science, and I thought that was really interesting, just the science piece of it. when I was in high school, I had the opportunity to go into a health program at Riverside University. So I was like, let's try this out. And I got to shadow some nurses. And I was like, I think I want to be a nurse. And so how could I combine these two passions of like forensic science and nursing? And I had learned that there were sexual assault nurse examiners, which were the first branch of forensic nurses that existed in the United States. And that started in the 1990s when they officially formed their organization. And when I went into college at Marquette for my undergrad, I knew that I wanted to go into forensic nursing. That was apparent right away, and I felt like an outcast because I was very different from everybody else. They want to do mom, baby, critical care, pediatrics, and I was like, nope, want to do forensic care, want to take care of trauma survivors. And everybody's like, whoa, that's really weird and different. And luckily I had an advisor that supported this to the utmost degree, and I did an independent study, learned about all the different specialties of forensic nursing, like correctional nursing, psych mental health nursing, dealing with incarcerated patients and sexual assault, domestic violence, even death investigators are nurses in some sections of the United States. So I just found it very intriguing and interesting. She allowed me also to do we had to do a certain amount of hours as a clinical nurse under, with a student and a nurse, sorry. And she's like, I know that the Sexual Assault Treatment Center exists just around the corner from Marquette down on, with Aurora Sinai, so I decided to do my preceptorship there. While everybody else was doing mom, baby, and peds, I was there and I followed a nurse. I did that over like a winterim and really got experience with, I did the nurses training. I went through their binder, I looked through their training videos, and she really trained me to become a sexual assault nurse examiner while I did that as a student. I did get to see some patients with her, and I immediately knew, when I saw a 3-month-old, I was like, I can't do this out of school. I knew that I needed to have extensive training and experience being an independent nurse and being able to function, because I knew the care that they needed and deserved needed someone who was ready to advocate for them and had as much advocacy experience and really enough behind in their background to take care of these patients. So I went on to do internal medicine first at Froedtert Hospital. So I've been in trauma care my entire career, taken always care of really complex, high acuity patients. It was when I went to critical care. I think I had been there for maybe 3 to 4 years, and I was like, okay, what's the next challenge? I think I want to be a sexual assault nurse examiner like I've always wanted to be, and I really felt at that time that I was really prepared and had enough experience and knowledge to take on that role. So I started at Aurora Sinai, I believe it was in 2013, and then left in 2021. So it was my interactions with patients that led me to researching. I had my first experience with research in critical care, so I'm like, how can I combine all of these passions and things that I'm good at, and still do the thing that I initially wanted to do in the first place.
Amazing journey. We've had the opportunity to work together some years ago, but there are some nurses or medical people here in the building. What would you say if someone had an interest in becoming maybe a forensic nurse? What is some of those first steps they could take, or what do you think about that? We know we need more forensic nurses of color and just forensic nurses, period. What would be some of those first steps they could take on this journey?
I think my first question is always to them, why do you want to do the work? Because you have to have the why behind you to do the work. And I want to know their connection to do the work. I think trauma carries like a sensationalism with it, that sometimes people get off track of why they're taking care of this population and what their true interest is in dealing with those that have experienced trauma. So usually that's the first question. Why do you want to do the work? And what do you see yourself accomplishing with the work? What's your passion? What's your goal? And then once that's, and I'm not one to be shy about how I address people in this work. I will be completely transparent and honest with you. But if I don't feel like you're ready to do the work, I will tell you you're not ready to do the work. And maybe you need to work on yourself. If it's the passion is related to something personal, I ask if you've done the work. Have you done your work and healed yourself before healing others? So behind all that part, the actual technical part of it is connecting them to a program that they find interesting. The training that we have is through the state, and then we have one through UWM, so connecting them through that, and then deciding where they want to practice, what area they're in.
So I have a question because you just said something a few minutes ago that caught me way off guard. So you said you had a 3-month-old?
I took care of a 3-month-old.
Right. Well, yeah, not had, but yeah, you took care of. And so in sexual assault awareness, we want to be aware that this is happening to babies that young.
Correct. Yeah, so at Sinai I practiced as a, I'm certified in both, all age ranges, pediatric, adolescent, and adult. Not all programs take care of children, but Aurora Sinai does. So my experience ranged, I think the youngest I saw was 3 months and up to 97.
97.
Yes, for sure. So when they literally say everybody can experience it, it is true.
When they say everybody can get it, that's true.
Like can experience
that's
violence.
crazy. So my mom is in a nursing home, and she doesn't walk and she doesn't really talk anymore. And we recently changed her nursing home. And for the first time since she's been even going through her whole situation with dementia, she had a tear the other day. And it's really been bothering me because I don't know what's going on. She can't tell me. And so for you to say up to 97 now, I really got other thoughts too. But that definitely is bringing some awareness. So as far as what is the most challenging part? You said you ask people if they're ready. What's the most challenging part of what you do?
When I practiced, the most challenging part was not the patients. It was the systems, which I think everybody knows that. I think advocating for my patients, knowing what's right is one thing, but also convincing or having someone else understand, and even through a trauma-informed lens, what that looks like. So working with physicians, other nurses, sometimes even social workers, depending on the system. I think that was the most challenging part of the work.
Okay.
I can think back to a time, I don't know if it was you and I, but we had a patient and the whole family showed up. It was a youth, and by the time we were finished, there were 40 people in the ER with that person. Can you talk to us a little bit about what it's like for someone to present to the ER? What does that look like? Or why do you think that's a good step in some of the hospitals that do have our SANE or sexual assault treatment center programs?
That's a layered
big question.
Because I think for a patient to even get to the hospital is huge. In my research, I know that Black women access law enforcement because of the desire to immediately disrupt the violence, and because of their increased severity and lethality that they experience with intimate partner violence, but I know that they do not access healthcare at the same rate. It's usually nationally they've found like only maybe 20% of African American women survivors make it to a hospital, and a lot of them don't know that that is a resource. For example, they're primary care physicians and ERs, so I think there's a lack of knowledge of resources, but also there's so much connected to why people don't go to the hospital. Historical transgressions with medical systems, stigma, previous interactions. A lot of women that I've talked to haven't had great previous interactions, even outside of trauma with healthcare, so that doesn't want to make you want to go there after trauma, right? So I think it's complex. So when someone gets to the hospital, I am thankful, and I tell them that, that they made it there, because I know how much they have to go through just to see me.
Mm-hmm. So we do have the opportunity for the audience to ask questions. You do need to come to the mic. I'll let you use my mic, or actually we'll let you use Serena's mic. Mine is a little tight, but we'll get you on the mic because you can't be heard outside of the mic. So if you have a question, just come on up. Don't be shy. Okay. You had another one?
I have questions. Anybody in the audience have a question?
Okay, we have someone coming up to the mic. Yeah, 3 months to 97. That's because, typically you think of maybe a 20, 30-year-old woman. That's what I think of. Definitely not a 3-month-old.
I mean, young women are statistically the ones that experience the most violence, but yes, it can happen at any age range.
Here we go. Come on over here a little bit.
Hello, so my name is Felicia. My question is, how do you keep it passion from personal? Like, passion, like it's more of a passion for you, like this is what you want to do, instead of like making it always personal, like, getting so into it, keeping it your job.
That's a good question. Listen, okay. I think I can't say it's never not going to be personal because I'm so connected to the work. That's hard. I think, and I've talked to my coworker Allison about this, we process this kind of stuff a lot. I think part of that is the answer is like categorizing it, kind of compartmentalizing it and putting into pockets, like what can I do and what can't I do? Yeah, that's a hard question, but I think, it's always gonna be personal for me.
It's always gonna be personal.
Yeah, it's always gonna be personal because I believe so much in the work, and I feel like not everybody wants to do this work, especially nurses, and there's a reason why I'm doing the work, and I feel like I always need to advocate for those who can't speak up, for example, the 3-month-old and the 97-year-old, and those that
So
don't
somebody
want
has
to
to do it.
necessarily speak up at the time.
That's amazing. You said one? Okay. There you go. All right. You have a question? Come on
We
up
do.
here.
Okay, I'm a nurse practitioner, and my background is critical care, so she was probably talking about me. I dealt with a lot, and obviously you know that background, with a lot of like sex trafficking, like patients that came in, and I get the point of the system. Have you ever thought about creating something where it's a little bit easier for those nurses who, like you said, are not comfortable? Because I remember I was third shift, so I did not have case managers. I spent a lot of time on the phone myself, calling around for resources because I didn't have that help. It would have been easier if there was like something that I could go to, especially at night, because at night, not like a freighter, because freighter, there's people there all day, but like when you're working in a hospital that is not a teaching hospital, there's not a physician there, you're doing a lot of the work, case management's not there, it would have been helpful because my passion's not in that aspect, but my passion is to care and want the best care for them, and knowing that there's other things outside that hospital that's better. I just want to throw that little tidbit in maybe in your mind of, have you thought about creating something on your own that there's a connection to every hospital that you can get to, so that when someone recognizes this, they know, like they think of you in whatever program you have, and they contact you and they have a liaison to go to, because that would have been helpful for me. And just thoughts.
Are you thinking specifically like a person? Because I think of like when I've done the research with these women, the gap is the healthcare and law enforcement aspect, which they're just two pieces of the pie, but also are very significant in the part of like physical healing and actual safety attainment. So my obviously wish would be to have advocates available, you know, to literally be the connection. And I know there has been some research done with advocacy being on scene with police officers and also nurses on scene to make that connection to healthcare systems. What the results are of the effectiveness of that has still yet to be seen, but I think it is an idea that there is that gap of like the person on the other end that has that person, they don't know what to do with them. I would always say Aurora Sinai is going to be always going to be your resource, because they're there 24/7. There's always someone going to respond. If you need someone, there's always a crisis counselor available. There's always a nurse on call or a nurse manager that has to answer. So that is a good resource that I can just vouch for.
So I heard you
Great
say
question.
that black women will seek the police to get involved before they will go and follow up with health care. Is that what you said?
Correct.
So a lot of black women who are sexually assaulted, they don't come and get the follow-up care. What is that follow-up care?
So that is up to the survivor, right? And that's part of our delivery. It is putting the empowerment back into the survivor to decide what they would like for follow-up care. So we provide options of care. So it starts off with me personally. This is how I always teach and practice. I always say, what is your highest priority today? Or what would you like to be addressed? For example, are you concerned about pregnancy? Are you concerned about sexually transmitted infections? Do you just want me to look over your body and make sure everything is okay and it looks normal, quote unquote, you know, and just address things like that. So we do things such as like a physical assessment, just looking head to toe, or I can look at specific things, you know, like my arm hurts because this is where he hit me, or for example, can do testing and treatment for sexually transmitted infections, depending on your risk factors, addressing HIV, pregnancy testing, collection of evidence, if that's what they would like to do. They can either report to police right away, or it can be delayed up to them, and they can address it at a later time.
Is this, well, I don't know if you'll have the answer to this, but I'm going to ask the question. So do you find a lot of your patients, they come to you as a result of their intimate partner, as an extension of domestic violence? Or is this a stranger ran up to me and grabbed me?
All of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above.
However, that's kind of a stigma.
But
That
we-
it's the stranger jumping out the bushes.
We do
the-
know that
the
you're more
weird
likely,
white van.
yeah, to be assaulted by someone you know rather than a stranger.
You're more likely to be assaulted by somebody you know
Correct.
rather than a stranger.
Yes.
I think that's good awareness for us. Yeah. Huh.
Looks like we've got some questions.
Oh, come on over.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to ask, has there ever been anyone's trauma that you have worked with that actually traumatized you?
Yes. I have many examples. That's what I'm trying to think of. If you want a specific example, I can share. Or it was one of my first cases. I was a fairly new forensic nurse, and it was a teenager involved assault. He came in with his mother. It was a stranger assault, which was interesting. The police were with him. Both the police and his mother were skeptical that this happened to him. But I immediately knew right away, if a young teenage boy is coming to me at 1 o'clock in the morning, why would he lie? I never questioned any of my patients. I mean, I think as we grow in the work, you know, things sometimes are questionable. Mental health, you know, plays a big part in some aspects of caring for trauma survivors. But anyway, I took him aside by myself. We developed a plan. He told me about his assault. He was very forthcoming, transparent. The details that he shared with me in the assault, I knew there's no way you could convince me that it did not happen, because it was so unique. And once you work in the work, you kind of understand how strangers perpetrate differently than people yeah, there are certain things, I don't know if Allison would agree with this, but I think you can kind of, I don't know, there's certain things about mechanisms of assault that stick out sometimes with strangers. The way people remember things, how they collect trauma in their brain, you just know that it operates a little bit differently. So we came up with a plan. He agreed to certain things. And under the state of Wisconsin, obviously, if you're a minor, you do need your parent permission for certain things. But there are certain things that he could definitely consent to by himself. So I told her the plan, what he had decided. She disagreed. And I then started realizing, which I think a lot of people in the work, when you're working with children, you realize that the parent is also a survivor. And so that's what I realized. I said, she is a survivor. And she actually verbalized to me, the next thing she said is, well, no one believed me. And I said, I'm sorry. So then I had to do some work with the mother, right? I had to take a little sidestep and say, you know, I'm sorry that this happened to you, and I'm sorry that no one believed you. We can work on what you need to heal after this if you'd like. Right now, my priority is your son, and what are we going to do for him? So I at least got her to agree to an assessment. We started there. I said, can we do an assessment? He agreed to her being in the room, and I said, based on what I see, we can move on from there. And if he's, you know, willing to move forward. But she was still adamant about certain things that I knew he needed. And that honestly destroyed me a little bit because I knew what he needed medically, and she would not agree to it. So that was the most traumatizing to me because I knew that this hadn't happened to him. I knew what he needed, and she would not agree to it. It later went to court, and it was very public case. Very public case. When I saw it the next day in the Journal Sentinel, I was like, how did they get my chart? I mean, that's how much detail they had from the police report that it just felt like my whole practice was out for everyone to see on public. So it was just very traumatizing because I felt like I wanted to do the best for this kid, you know, and I just couldn't because of this mother. And I don't want to blame her, but, you know, it's just hard to, you know, rationalize that out in your head, you know, when you're trying to care for someone. So that was the hardest case I probably ever had.
You can't hear. We can't hear you.
The profile of the perpetrators, whether they are relatives or strangers, I would think relatives would try to make you comfortable with what they're doing, and
Correct.
strangers are relentless usually.
Yes, I would say that people that you know, especially with children, there are grooming behaviors. Like you said, they want to make you feel comfortable, especially when it's children or underage. When we know cycles of domestic violence or intimate partner violence, we know that there's a cycle and of like honeymoon and, you know, a break of violence and then a building up of violence. So it's kind of predictable to the survivor, right? So I think that once you are in the work, you kind of get a little key on what is quote unquote normal or expected and what is a little bit different when you're working with stranger assaults. There's behaviors, or if they're serial abusers or even rapists in the area, you kind of start to put the pieces together.
Okay, we're gonna.
Can we take one more question? and
We
then
are kind of at our time.
we're at our time.
We.
Look, okay.
Great. I think this is actually kind of for all the panelists. We've talked a little bit about how stranger rape is very low on the list in comparison to being assaulted by somebody that you know. And I know that it's really hard for survivors to disclose to someone. And I know in my particular case, there was a lot of victim blaming that happened. And so I'm curious what your advice would be to people who are disclosing, like what is a good response that someone should have for a survivor if they are, if someone honors them enough to disclose their situation to them, what would you say would be a good response?
The response is always going to be different based on the person's disclosure, right, and where you are and who you are in that. If you're a mandated reporter, before they get ready to start telling you that or telling you something, you might want to make sure that they're comfortable with the fact that you may have to share this with someone else. The other part for me is always listen first to get an understanding, and then speak to make sure they understand that I understood, because I never want anyone to feel as though I didn't understand their response to trusting me with their heart, right, and with their situation. I believe you. That is the response automatically. I believe you. You know, it helps them to know that there's no judgment in this room. That's not me trying to rewrite your story. That is not me interrupting you when you get to the part of it that makes me cringe. It's always listen, only listen, and then look for peaks of questions before you come up with a response that they didn't ask you for. So if they don't come up with a question for you, there's no response needed. It's listen, only listen, and I believe you.
Okay.
That's great.
Not just because she handed me the mic, but I'll double down on that. You know, just in the unique, space I have as being a man here on this panel. The spaces I have are for men, and just because of how men are socialized. When someone is privy or privileged enough to share something as vulnerable as that, I mean, the most common response that we usually give is just that. Thank you for sharing that in this space. It's not running to offer advice. It's not to talking about what I would have did or how I wouldn't have put up with whatever, however you feeling about it, or if someone's telling the truth or not, like we're not even like just thank you for being vulnerable and being able to share, because a lot of times, like for us, that a lot of times that's half the battle. Somebody might have been carrying that for years, and we want to honor that.
Right. And even just that silence, let them, they may have not been heard before. It might be the very first time that all of those feelings, everything's coming up. You don't have to have the answers. Just listen. And then we've got a whole panel here and some organizations. You can get them some support, but at first, just listen.
We're on number 2. I believe that's Patrice. Yes.
We're Miss Patrice, our counselor and wellness specialist. We have a kind of an intro question. You bring a therapeutic lens to healing, rooted in both culture and care. What called you to mental health work, and what makes it personal for you?
That's a great question. As in my bio, I started out in social services, working in the Milwaukee Public School systems, and also serving families, children who have been removed from their homes. And as I continued to do that work, I saw that there was a greater need. I wanted to start helping people on a one-on-one level to gain understanding and awareness, like what's happening in the homes and how can I better serve the children. So my initial start to working was all around kids. And then I got my placement for my internship, and it ended up being at Aurora Healing Center. And I fell in love with just watching survivors grow and glow and recover from that healing journey. And so it was like a beautiful thing, and my first job was with children survivors. Scared the crap out of me, because I'm like, now I have to watch these babies come in here with this trauma. Oh my goodness. And then watching them grow and heal and the beauty that came from them, I was like, what is wrong with us as adults? Because these little ones, they had so much resiliency. They just needed someone to guide and support, be believed, because like you're talking about, oftentimes parents don't believe. And then they blame them, especially if it's the partner You know, it's a lot that goes along with that. But as I continued, I just continued to do that journey working with other people as well as being a survivor of myself. And so I didn't go into it looking at that. But like you said, that it's a difference between like managing the passion with the work is a beautiful dance. And so like always keeping your boundaries in check as well as having a support network that you can talk to and bounce things off of was very important for me to stay rooted and grounded and not like burn out in the work, because this is a high stress field and we can absolutely burn out in what we do. And then being a survivor, you lead with a different type of being, or just the love or the knowing of not necessarily what people need, but to be able to view and see them as who they are without judgment. And I love what Nancy said, like listen to listen. And that's so important because most of the time that's the first time anyone has ever been heard or believed, or their first experience, even with men. I've been doing a lot of work with men lately, them telling that story for the very first time and not being judged or not talking about their sexuality or how that may have made them feel coming up. So I think the work is just so beautiful. And as I've seen my life evolve around just the work that I did and how it all makes so much sense. I didn't understand like the bits and pieces as I was going through, but now it all makes so much sense because everything that I learned along the way, it helps foster what I'm doing now, because I love psychoed, teaching people, because sometimes what I find in therapeutic settings, you know, it's the diagnosis, we're treating the symptoms. But my thing is educate people about what they're experiencing so they can understand what's happening to them, be able to identify from it and move forward. Because if they don't know, we stay stuck in those loops and we never walk through it. We get stuck right here. I always tell people, don't pitch a tent and live there. Do the work.
So you're talking about educating people about the trauma that they're going through so that they know what they're, so what is that, is there a process that people, I mean, we probably all have trauma, right?
Yeah.
So are we experiencing a process that we're not aware of? What is that process?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Most of the time we're experiencing things and we don't know. We're shaped into who we are from our experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So from childhood, those things that we have experienced, it shapes like, okay, if I'm afraid of heights, why am I afraid of heights and I never experienced? You know, that comes from lineages. Like my mother was afraid of heights, so I'm naturally afraid of heights. For what reason, I don't know. But it was because it was something that was put into me. Oh, we're not going up there, it's too high. So now I'm afraid. And so understanding where you come from, who you are, and what is the core of your being, and learning how to walk through those things. And I do a lot of inner child work too. When I'm dealing with clients, I say, how old did that emotion feel? And they're like, oh yeah, that was my 7-year-old. He was cutting up. So what does that 7-year-old need? Okay, who else is in there? Oh, that 15-year-old. Why does he even exist? What happened at 15? I was neglected. I didn't feel loved. So I'm out here cutting, you know, doing all the wild stuff because I'm seeking attention. So helping people identify what they're experiencing innerly can help them pull it out and heal from it, and providing what that 7, 15, 21-year-old need, because we all got little parts.
That's
My
very
5-year-old comes
interesting.
out on a regular basis
Okay.
with my partner, and he's like, girl, go to sleep. But but yeah, so it's just like understanding who you are and then having a community that will accept those parts of you and love you through those things.
I have one more question. I'm gonna let you go because I know you have. So you said, so I watched this movie, you know, and in the movie, the daughter was being molested. I mean, she was a teenager, but I guess molested is still the right word, right? She was being molested by the mom's boyfriend, and the mom put the daughter out and
Yes.
kept the boyfriend.
That
Is that
happens
a common thing?
Yes, that happens a lot. They blame their daughter for wanting their man instead of placing blame where it belongs. And so then the child is growing up neglected, and then we have other sides of that. Okay, so My body was taken. I don't have agency over me. So then what do they go out and do? That's the way I feel loved. That's the way I feel seen. That's the way I get heard. I'm over sexualized. And then and I get so angry when people call girls little fast girl.
Mm-hmm.
That bugs me, because what happened to that baby for her to be sexualized? We never look at that. And we blame the child instead of blaming the adult who should have known better.
Do you think we're seeing that a lot now, or is it social media? Do you think that there's some things going on in the home?
Absolutely.
Because we have a lot of over-sexualized
Absolutely.
stuff going on
And
online.
when the young lady asked about things that has traumatized you during the pandemic, the cases I began to hear were more horrific because nobody had laid eyes on people. You know, kids were in the schools, not in the schools, but in the homes. So that when people came out of or even took services during the pandemic, yeah, I was like, whoa. Because, you know, you hear the things, but then when the other stuff comes out, you're just like, oh my goodness. I didn't think it could get any worse.
Oh,
Yeah, I love this conversation. A lot of times it'll come out, it won't be, hey, this happened to me. It's gonna come out in anger, it's gonna come out in overstimulated, it's gonna come out in pain, headaches. So how do you start those conversations? Or is that something that you advocate for when someone's acting up in school or
Yes.
being labeled for one reason or another?
Yeah, and even doing work in the school systems, I'm always, because I have the trauma lens, and then everybody's talking about trauma informed, but a lot of settings that say they're trauma informed really aren't trauma informed. It could be the system that is trauma informed, but all of the providers or people that's in the place are not trauma informed. You may have a handpicked of people who knows, like, you got the experience, so you're gonna operate under that lens, but other people are not gonna operate. So just educating people in different settings, like, hey, let's take a step back. We're looking at this child's behavior, but what's causing the behavior? We always want to identify what we can see, just like everybody's seen the anger iceberg. Anger is at the top, but it's so many other things that's underneath. And so, like, why is this kid constantly having tantrums? It may be sexual violence. They may be witnessing some violence in their home. They may be getting bullied, but we have to do the work, step back, and see, like, okay, what's really going on?
wow.
Do we have any audience questions for Patrice?
Yep, the mic is open.
We've got a counselor in
over
the
here.
building.
I need some personal counseling. See, when you said my inner child, I was like, well, you know, I remember when I was 12. That 12-year-old is in there. She's like, I don't trust you.
Okay, hi, my name is Tanya. I used to.
This way.
Oh.
Where you going?
Trying to go sit back down.
My question is, it's funny that you mentioned that about in the schools and with the students. I used to work for Milwaukee Public Schools as well. The program that I was in dealt with a lot of traumas with the human sex trafficking, dealt with children. I had kids that were being molested before they got to school. And there was very low resource for these babies that were coming into school. And like you stated, you have to have compassion for these children because they were snapping off. Yeah. And it was because of what was going on with them. And a lot of the adults took it on as that's a bad kid, not getting to the root of the problem.
Absolutely.
So with social workers in the school, I mean, are there trainings? Do you have trainings for our babies in these schools where what they're doing, there's a reason, and if they trust you enough, they will tell you.
They will.
And then and how to handle that, because I got told a lot that didn't
Right.
get covered.
Absolutely.
So,
And there is trainings in the schools, but then you look at the social workers and the counselors, the capacity,
exactly.
the budget cuts. They're removing people instead of replacing those things and bringing in, I think, for me, I think community-based organizations should be in there doing some of this work and training to like even give kids the awareness, because just think about your environment. If this is the norm, I think this is okay. If my uncle is touching on me every day, that's okay. I don't know anything different. I think that's happening in everybody's house. But then to even like, oh, that I had to train ladies, like, your partner is raping you. They didn't know because that's what just happened. And so like the training is there. The people, some people are, but it's, you know how to cut grass. And it's unfortunate that we don't have enough people looking at that, and I think it's so much burnout happening. We just shoo the little kid
they're
that's
being
causing all the
to the
behavior issues.
wayside. Yes, one more thing, and then I'm sit down, because this is very touching for me. With, are there any other resources or programs outside that children are able to at least have that information? If you can't get it here, you can get it over here.
Yes, there are. Like, for example, Children's Hospital, they have the counseling, but the wait lists are long. There are other youth-serving organizations that actually support youth and kids. Pathfinders is another one that works with youth, but I think their program for child sexual assault is no longer there. So,
And see, that's the thing. That's the thing. I'm so sorry. It irritates my soul.
yes,
Because our babies are out here, and they're full of anger.
yes,
It's almost like they have suicide on them. They care for nothing and nobody.
yes,
And the reasoning behind it, I was in the school for 10 years, and the kids that I had, yeah, they were something, but those were the ones I wanted.
yes.
Because I knew it wasn't me, and it wasn't about the school academic.
Right.
There's something else.
Absolutely.
And the adults played a major role in the kids acting as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I can speak that now because I'm no longer there. But that irritated me because these children, when you learn what was going on with them, it's like,
It makes
now
sense
what
for the behavior.
Exactly. And that's what we're seeing on the streets. I think big. I got my own business with the cake, but then I get back into with the kids because I've always had a passion for my teens and 12, 11, and up.
Yeah.
Because those are the ones where a lot of these things are happening when your dad is doing this
Yes.
and mom is closing an eye. That's deep.
It's very,
And they
very
have
deep.
no outlets. Everything is full, or it's like, what can they do?
Yeah. And that's the thing.
I got all kind of stuff written down. I was waiting.
Yeah, and,
You
and
done?
like you're saying, and it's like creating programming, and that's why so many different programs are popping up in our communities that are for youth. And like even with you, maybe doing something vacant around trauma to give them something else to do besides be on the street. Like I've been seeing these fight houses, and it's just angering me. It's so much happening. So why do I feel like it's okay for me to just go somewhere and fight? That's something else that's going on the inside.
A fight house?
Yes.
What? Okay, I'm assuming it's exactly what.
Yes.
So people
kids
just
are
show up?
breaking into vacant homes and making a Facebook post and charging money at the door.
To go fight?
Yeah, like
Yes.
Fight Club.
I'm pretty out of touch. My youngest is 33, so I guess I'm just out of touch.
Yeah, my heart just hurt for our youth, and just, like learning how to, like you said, step back when you're doing this work, because I work with everybody from Now I'm going to be a infant mental health specialist, mental health for children. And so, like, during this capstone program, I've been learning so much, and it's just beautiful work. But every behavior is communication.
Yeah, I would love to go into that a little bit
Every behavior is
more,
communication.
because I'd like to be able to. I have a granddaughter, and I swear she is screaming for something that I don't know. I don't know. I don't think she's being, sexually abused, but I don't know what the heck is going on. But it's something going on.
And sometimes it's just sitting back and watching them play, and it'll give you.
Well, she's
some of it.
24.
Okay.
But
Thought
something's
you
been
meant the
going on
little
for
one.
some years, since she was like 15, and I had a conversation with her back then, and I just don't know. I have no clue. But this number 3.
I think this is a good segue into our next panelist. Just organizations, we are out here and fighting to get into the schools and being told no, and still going anyway in different ways. But I like Patrice's, like, baking, doing things that are out of the ordinary. It doesn't have to be a whole schedule, programming. Show up with your cookies, maybe have them decorate for the holidays. Just giving them an outlet and building that trust. And then, like you said, they will start talking. And we're gonna go. Patrice, anything else that you, okay? We're gonna move on to Ron of Fathers Making Progress. And we're gonna start with the question. You work closely with men and fathers to break cycles and rebuild community. What inspired you to make healing and accountability a centering part of your mission?
Okay. Yeah, so I guess I can talk about the mission first and foremost for those who don't know. The mission of Fathers Making Progress is to, to improve the community and, build generational cycles through strengthening fathers. We believe that stronger fathers equal stronger families, which equals stronger communities. And, we do that through just investments, long-term investments, so people come in, they come through the door through some of our entry, programming, some of our 12-week classes. And, that's only the beginning. When they graduate the classes, they become alum. And once you become alum, alumni of the program, we have some alum who've been a part of the movement for, in some cases, 5, 10, 15 years. And once you become an alum of the program, we continue, because we never arrive in Iron Sharpens Iron. We have an alumni space where folks have been coming in some cases, like I said, for a long time. We got some grandfathers who are now making progress. So, also, like we, Iron Sharpen Iron, and we never arrive. Also, we create spaces because I truly believe, and that's kind of going to your thing about accountability, that, the true impact is made when those who have been part of the target group become part of the solution. So we also we have a training institute where we actually train folks from the community to be able to, do this work, be able to, facilitate our workshops and mobilize in the community and just have a place where, they could be a part of the work. Where the you say the accountability around violence, right? Yeah. Healing. Where the accountability around healing comes in that mission is just kind of how our organization was formed in the first place, and me being a founder. We talked about trauma, we talked about violence. Anyone who's ever done the ACEs test, my score was 7. I've been through lots of traumas in my life, including losing my father, the violence, my brother, the violence. Lots of family members. In fact, my best friend from growing up he actually got life in prison for killing my other best friend, when we got older. It's deep, man. Their families don't get along to this day. Yeah, but anyway, so like I said, my father, I lost him when I was 9 years old, and you know, I became a part of a lot of negative statistics, you know. But becoming a dad myself, you know, I was a teen dad, you know, kind of on the way to becoming a statistic. I was a statistic, but I can say that becoming a father, you know, saved my life because it made me try and do something different. You know, it made me, like, I just kind of saw myself kind of getting trapped in some of the things I've seen, some of the stuff I saw folks getting in. I'm just looking, because you know, just like, hey, you know, later for that, you just like almost, I don't want to say it was an automatic snap, but by the time my second son came, you know, I just really had just decided to commit myself to doing something different. It was at that time I was bothering the folks before we started about the program, about the audio, about the setup, you know, because media was my first passion. I actually, you know, went to school, and you know, you know, my first degree was in audio, you know, broadcast, and I was part of the Channel 10 1236 program, and it was at that time that I was working in a recording studio. My sons then were in Head Start. You know, the way recording studios are, a lot of times it's like, you know, I might have an 18-hour day just mixing. I did a lot of radio car commercials. You know, yeah, the same guy does a lot of those same voices too, by the way. But anyway, so it's like I might have an 18-hour day, I might have a 2-hour day. When my sons were in Head Start, like I said, you know, my passion was just to do and be something different. I spent a lot of my time with them, so I wouldn't die young and get in trouble. I mean, that's the best way I could put it. So anyway, it was at that time that, you know, I just do anything. You know, I'm reading to kids in class. You know, serving lunches. You know, taking. You know, I was the faux pas gym teacher, not getting paid anything. But anyway, I was watching men and dads come in and out. You know, drop their kids off, and you know, sometimes folks from the community, and I would just be like, you know, I ask them how they doing. You know, I might know them, and it's just like the language. You know, like, oh, well, I'm dropping my kids off for her. You dropping your kids off for her, like them your babies too, bro. You know, so anyway, at that time, the center director had actually challenged me to do something about it, because she was tired of me complaining. So, you know, it was there that I actually went to my first, you know, fatherhood training and, you know, curricular training, and started, you know, my first group with North Kai Head Start. That was probably, I want to say that was about 23 years ago. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was from there that I just kind of, you know, started this cruel vision of me just wanting to be somebody and not, you know, succumbing to some of the things that I see my father succumb to helping others kind of figure out that same thing for themselves. So Fathers Making Progress, you know, was something that was actually born out of that work. You know, so I went from that to, you know, starting an internship at a nonprofit organization that did workforce, and, you know, in workforce and in workforce programming, you know, what was missing, you know, in workforce programming, most of the programs were for non-custodial parents who were usually fathers. So it was there that I started the first, you know, the fatherhood group that would become Fathers Making Progress. And here we are 20 years later, the movement's still moving, you know.
That's a great thing.
So,
Yes.
So where accountability comes in, like, you know, like, so basically it's like we're steeped and rooted in, you know, not only best practices, but in love and accountability. You know, these are some of the things that it's just like, as dads and as men, you know, I can go into some of the science and some of the statistics around it, but like fatherlessness is a plague on our communities and on our families. And at the very root of a lot of these issues that we're talking about, from violence to mental health to sexual violence to poverty to, you know, to academics to whatever, you know, just like the like fractures in nuclear families. And I can only take advantage. I mean, I can only take accountability for my part in that as a dad and as a you know, proprietor for men. You know, so like love and accountability is a big part of what we do. It's a big part of, it's actually steeped in all the programming that we do, and just kind of really helping folks, I guess, kind of get to the root. You know, we just think about all the negative statistics, and how trauma is at the center of that. You know, so getting to the center of that trauma and just really finding a place to, as I said earlier, have a space to where we can recognize and not feel judged and just really just deal with our stuff is important.
We thank you for being vulnerable and being the only gentleman here on the panel. The next question is kind of around that. Why is it so important to include men and fathers in these conversations about sexual violence?
Because what? Hey, it's funny, but it's, you know, I'll just say it, you know, like so, you know, socialization, of course, is a big part of it, but you know, it's just like when we're talking about healing, you know, yeah, so social norms and societal norms, and just like the very, very harmful parts of social and societal norms when it comes to men, you know, like, I mean, unfortunately, some of these stats are changing, but it's just like men are still by far the greatest perpetuators of violence, you know, perpetrators of violence, you know, and sexual violence, you know, on women and on each other, you know. So it's just like, I'm just of a firm belief that, you know, when we're talking about solutions and we're talking about doing better, it's like, you know, well-meaning men have to be a part of those solutions and have to be a part of those, you know, just really kind of doing away with societal norms. It's funny, I can literally tell a story of you know, it's funny, you talk about the stereotypical locker room talk. I can tell you about a story that actually happened in a locker room. We were at, I was in one of those fitness gyms that I don't go to as much as I should, and anyway, there were two guys. They were there talking, and it was me and this other guy who would work out there a lot. I see, and we were there. We were talking, and there were two guys on the side talking, and you know, the conversation got real heated, and you know, I guess he was talking about some conflict he had with his significant other, and then he started talking about how he, like, man, I just you know, pent that B on the wall and this and it's so funny, like it's not funny at all, but it was just so wild how all the guys just kind of looked at each other. They were just kind of looking at each other, and like I said something. I said something not because I'm the bravest. I said something only because I had the training on how to kind of facilitate these kind of conversations sometimes, and I said something to the effect of like dang man, like I wonder how our dad would have felt about how you handled that. That's what I said, and it just broke the ice, because after a while, all the guys in the locker was like, yeah, man, because somebody did that to my daughter, I would blah, 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 blah. And I went up there, and them dudes never came back. I never saw them again in the gym. But it's just like, and it wasn't just to gang up on them, but it's just like, I'm just giving that story because this is an example of how we have responsibility as well-meaning men and as protectors of our mothers, our daughters, our children, and everyone else to facilitate, you know, just knowing that these statistics, like I said, men are primary perpetrators of this. We have the responsibility of making folks who perpetrate that uncomfortable and not making that all right, and not making this the space like where it's okay to even just say something like that.
I just want to take the opportunity to ask this question, since you are fathers making progress, and it is a conversation that we've all heard, and is not directly sexual assault related, but forever and ever and ever we are hearing black men blaming black women for ruining our children because we are the single parents in the household. Now, I just don't understand how the absence of the father doesn't seem to play into their thought process at all. Can you speak to that and look straight in the camera when you say it?
Well,
You're in the hot seat.
I have no problem with, no, that's not even the hot seat, because I'll tell you, you know, like, even as our work evolves, and those who know me and those who are in the audience, and some people in the audience are involved in this, but even as our work evolves, I can just hit it from a scientific perspective, or I can hit it from the just what I think perspective. But I'll just go with the statistics. I just put it like this. I'll go with the black and white of it all. What we've been doing with men, as far as fatherhood, and as far as how we, you know, give men tools and help brothers be accountable and help people grow and help people learn and help people do away with some of their trauma, et cetera, is great. And at the same time, it's not working. It's not working, and I'll tell you why it's not working. Because studies show, and this is actually a Columbia University study. It went on for 20 years. They actually did include programs from all over the country, including some of mine. And what they found was programs like ours both prepare men to be better fathers, and it doesn't necessarily translate into outcomes for their children if they don't have access, if they haven't figured out these things with their kids' mothers or with their co-parents, you know. So it's just like it's like if I'm over here and it's like I'm still carrying trauma and still not, and I'll tell you, like, even some of the things we've done as fatherhood programs have been harmful. You know, it's just like, you know, because you talk about accountability, right? You know, it's like, you know, we grab guys, oh yeah, she got you on child support, let us help you. Like
let us help you get that reduced.
Just help you get that reduced, right? But it's like, where's the accountability in that? You know, like I mean, because I used to have to be, sadly, I had to be that guy who would do the class where guys would come when they kind of come, you know, out of child support court. And one of the first things that I show brothers is the true cost of raising a child. And it's like, man, that little $300 a month don't look so bad, bro. But I'm saying all this to say that it's just like we're better together. We need both of us. And it's like, you know, we have to find ways to, you know, for the people who create these children and the community that supports them to work together. That's the only way it works. You know, it's like it's no just blaming single moms. There's no blaming single dads. It's like what works is both of you, and that's what's statistically proven. You know, like, I mean, but once again, rooted and steeped in trauma. And I'll just say it, there are a lot of folks who like things exactly the way they are because there are a lot of systems that benefit from the brokenness, you know, of our families. You know, so it's like we have to do something a lot different. Even as programs, even just with the elements that do work, it's like that works and it needs something else, you know. Yeah, you know, So that's what I say to that. Like, you know, we can't just blame single moms, and, you know, like I said, a lot of there's trauma and hurt that's talking. You know, just being honest with you. That's my personal opinion. A lot of that trauma and hurt that's talking.
I was just wondering which, because I just read it all the time. The women are ruining the kids. It's the women. You know, they call the women names and stuff, and I'm like, okay, where is the accountability for the missing father?
Oh, yeah.
Why is he not noticed as part of the problem of this child feeling abandoned or unloved by, you know, their father?
I get it. Yeah, we got to do something.
Fathers are an
different.
important part of a kid's life.
We got to do something different. You know, I tell you, I have a very sad co-parenting story too. You know, but still, you know, it's just like, I mean, we have to do something different. You know, because I heard a minister once say, you know, just like, you know, you show me a no good woman, I'll show you a man who failed her.
Okay, we on to number 4.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did want to just, since this is sexual assault awareness, and I wanted to just mention, first of all, yes, the numbers are higher of men being the perpetrators, but we know those are just those that report, and we don't have the real numbers. With, you know, even in the news right now, we're seeing a female teacher and was sexually assaulting a young brother. So I would just like to, I know me and Patrice have had this conversation before, like, do you feel like younger men or boys would find it easier to come to men to maybe get support and services, or what does that look like as far as even building that trust and having that open space for young men in our community? Where can they go if they've been sexually assaulted and can still not be labeled and judged and all of those things? We've had a conversation just about that being a young boy, and it looks different. some people are going to be like, yes.
Right. That's
you-
what I was
You
just read something
you-
about
this
that.
is like a rite of passage, and then we
Mhm.
have, other people. It's a big question. But would you mind just touching on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, I think, spaces of healing are needed. We totally have, like I said, the societal norms and like a lot of men, still, things are changing and have changed, from generations, but I still see a lot of us wearing these masks and, like you said, even things that are supposed to be, it's funny you brought that up. And it's so I actually had that conversation with someone about that over the weekend about the teacher, because people still make those jokes like, man, he's 16, he should be blah blah. Dude,
Correct.
yeah.
Outrage.
I have a friend of the family who and it's so funny because I was even one, as a man, I was the one who was telling her that this was ill and wrong, but her son was like 16 and he was like, it was some grown 30-something-year-old who was coming to pick him up, and I'm just like, dude, that like, why are you letting, I challenged her on it, why are you letting this happen? And she was even, we talk about societal norms, because sadly those societal norms exist with women too, and these double standards exist with women too. Like, and in fact, I even feel like she even used the language. It ain't like he's a girl. I think she even used that language. But man, I'll tell you what's going on now. I think he's like 19 or 20. I think they're still together, and he's just like, he's like on her couch. He's like not doing anything with his life. He's like her butler. He like takes care of her kids, and it's just a really crazy. It's like a psychological, kind of like manipulation kind of situation going on. Yeah. And I know I've shared the story before, but even sadly, I mentioned having a really bad co-parenting relationship, man. I say this, in being steeped in trauma, I think one of the reasons I ended up with my first wife is because I'll just tell you, like, I had some things happen to me when I was younger that I wasn't really quite ready for. I was like in 5th grade, it was this older young lady who was just supposed to be, my friend or babysitter or whatever, So anyway, after it happened, I never forget this. Like, I thought that she was my girlfriend, and then she just started treating me real bad. It was just like I heard someone say something earlier about thinking norm and love. Like, that can happen to men too.
Yes.
Like, seriously, it's like, just kind of this, this self-loathing and this acceptance of just abusive behavior, and seeking that. And, I don't know, like, it was a part of me, I guess, that kind of sought that when I went out and started having real relationships. Yeah. And I, and it's funny because I've told folks variations of that stories, and I've been accused of everything from lying to I should be happy to it's just like what, like, it's wild.
I think it is definitely a double standard, because you do hear some of my male friends had experiences when they were 15, 16, 17 or whatever, and it is kind of like a whole bragging thing. Well, when I was 16, I had this 24-year-old, 35-year-old, whatever, and it's like they're bragging about it as if they accomplished something. They didn't really realize they were being taken advantage of. But there's a whole group of men in certain age groups, and I don't know if that still is what it is, or if people look at it maybe a little bit different now, because I just feel like things are a little bit different now. But yeah, back then, they definitely looked at it as a rite of passage. Mm-hmm.
You better not come for my sons. I don't know what I'm saying.
It's a lot of those conversations on social media right now because of Shannon Sharp and that 19-year-old. And so now the men are saying, well, if it was the other way around, nobody would be saying anything. If it was a 19-year-old boy and a 56-year-old woman, they'd be like, oh yeah, she's a cougar, she should get her whatever on what Stella got to get her groove back, whatever. Yeah, because there's a whole movie kind of, the boy in Stella Got Her Groove Back was 20 and she was 40.
Well, I mean,
So technically he was an adult, but
well, we've heard all those stories about Michael Jackson and how the people, how strange his behavior was or whatever, and it came out that he had been living with Diana Ross since he was like a 12-year-old.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
We better get to number 4.
Before you go, I just wanted to talk about what Tehran was saying about young men being molested and assaulted, and it's like the rite of passage. But I have so many men coming in now talking about that same thing, but not understanding your brain is not wired for sexual activity at that age. So when you experience that, now that's a predisposition, and now you know what it is, you know what feels good, so you're constantly seeking that thing. And we look at our community now, how many men are just having babies. Think about the pattern. That's all I wanted to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You gonna bring Nancy on in here? Because she ready to bust a rhyme. That's what she told me.
That's too funny because I was over here just to rock and I wrote a whole map out of things that we talked about already.
She's arrived. Yes. Nancy, and this is a question. You've been a fierce presence on the front lines of healing and outreach. What was that moment of experience that moved you to start in this work?
You could come up with some loaded ones. Yeah. The thing about it is Fresh Start was built on that very word of fresh start, where new beginnings happen. And it happened with me first. Living in my trauma and then have it turn into triumph, knowing that pattern, that roadmap that I was living, thinking there was nothing else that I could do, and finding out that everything that was done to me, there was a creative path to come out for someone else. Not walking a mile in someone else's shoes, but walking a mile in your own, but then also helping people learn how to walk in their shoes. One thing that we don't do is mimic behavior. I can't tell you just because you were sexually assaulted, you're gonna feel like I felt when I was sexually assaulted. Just because you were trafficked, you're not gonna feel like I felt when I was trafficked. So those kind of things, we pattern it based on your experience. And again, when I say listen, only listen, that's our motto. Like, you have to be able to hear what somebody is speaking to you in order for you to be able to answer responsibly, right? If there's a question being asked. But for me, I knew it when I checked off every box that society said. I gave my life to the Lord. I gave up drugs and alcohol. I bought me a house. I went back to school. I'm raising my children now. I'm doing a doggone thing. But in my closet, there was a Pandora box full of bones and hurt and pain and scars and wounds and unforgiveness and all those things that were still in me, but literally wearing that mask every day of a smile until one day somebody looked at me and asked me, who are you really?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to take that moment after still flouncing through the room, waving, I'm Nancy Yarbrough, executive director. I got in the car and cried that somebody actually saw me. So in that, we built out programs based on, again, the listening to the street, listening to the people, listening to the response, listening to the community, listening to our partners. That's why our hashtag is absolutely Stronger Together. When we talk about advocacy, it's up here, it's out here, it's for those that are listening. We're not an island by ourselves, and our trauma doesn't dictate the way that somebody should respond to it. It happens when you actually listen and then create inside of your program what works for that individual person. This is not cookie cutter, right? We can't stump, paste. We have to stop, process, listen, and then go from there. And when we are not the one that can do it, find community partners and warm transfer over to people that can. When the lady got up and asked about who does this type of work. I live this work every day, right? It's a ministry in my heart. I could be doing anything else. I worked in corporate offices. I did all kind of things, but my call and my pull was back to where God had brought me from. So that is why the light bulb came on and said, I can no longer hide behind the desk. I can no longer hide behind societal norms for me. I can no longer hide behind what I think I'm supposed to be based on what my mama said, what my daddy said, what they said. I had to go with what God said. Who I am and who I'm supposed to be is a direct reflection of somebody else needing to know their roadmap out. When my son called me the modern day Harriet Tubman, I laughed about it only because I only knew so much about Harriet Tubman. I didn't know a lot, only what we were told, and I didn't do any more investigating about it. But when I realized the root of who she really was, even though they still deemed her a slave, in her mind she knew she was free, and she was willing to give her life to make sure that people understood that roadmap out is actually real, and I'm going to go back for anybody else that wants to come out. That was what Fresh Start was built for. So in actuality, the same streets on Lisbon, North Avenue, Wisconsin, Wells, National, all those streets that had me in bondage, we go right back to those same streets and give out the support in various forms that God has given us to give out, because it's just an olive branch for us to say, here I am. And consistency and accountability and holding it to our chest is real. Anybody can give a sandwich. Anybody can give some hygiene. They can buy it themselves. But are you steady showing up? Are you putting humanity back into it? Are you allowing them to be able to sign up for things they want to do? Are they part of that healing process? That's the part about it, because I didn't want people keep telling me what I needed. I needed to tell somebody else what I thought I wanted. Not what I need, what I want. What I want to do is, I want to stop hurting so bad. I want to stop crying at night. I want to stop contemplating suicide. I want to believe in myself. So everything that we do at Fresh Start is literally a fresh start for anybody that's ready to start the process on their own terms and be able to understand all those things are important. Showing up is important. Consistency is important. Learning is important. But learning who you're working with, not learning who you are for them, learning who they are for you. Because other than that, we just have people sitting around the tables regurgitating information, and the bigger people keep talking about what they're doing, and all it's doing is causing our black girls and boys, families, women, fathers, and everyone else to still be in that same pot, eating from the crumbs from the master's table. We got to stop accepting that as a norm. You know, and that's why a lot of times we don't even receive the funding from a lot of places that restrict us from being able to really talk about it the way that it is. You know, because it's not fair. Then we are part of the problem too, right? So that is why Fresh Start started. That's why the light bulb came on in me, because I kept remembering that I wasn't healed. I kept having to remember that I was still in bondage, the bondage I put myself in. And I kept remembering the fact that I don't even know who she is. Who am I? When I look in the mirror, what do I really see? Now I can see. But I couldn't see then. I was truly blinded by what everybody else wanted me to be. Mm-hmm. So that is why Fresh Start started, and that's where new beginnings happen, because I really believe that it can happen for anyone.
Ooh-wee. I had a couple chills while you was talking.
Fire.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Amen. Yeah, I hear that a lot. I wanna, God. Okay. Yeah. Trying to tell you something right now.
What do you think can better equip frontline and advocates and all of those that want to do the work or are trying to get into this work? Where can they start? What can help them to be ready? This work is not easy. Some people think they want to do it, get into it, and they're like, no. What kept you going, or what do you think?
What I always tell people is get in where you fit in. That's not just a cliche, it's real. We have a program that allows you to understand if you write the letters of love that go inside of our bags that we hand out, then that's your part. If you want to write a check that actually goes into help and support, I don't want a blank check. I want you to come see where your check is coming, come and visit what we're doing. If you want to be on the street with us and go out and meet the people, if you want to be a part of direct services, see, in your heart, you know what you want to do, So because you do know what you want to do, then that's the best part of you. Because you don't have people in a nonprofit organization or for-profit and you say, I want some volunteers, but they're an accountant, but you're asking them to hand out sandwiches. Well, you need help in your accounting work. So ask them, can they get some pro bono work to do the accounting work? You have people that really do have scars and trauma that they've healed, and they know how to work directly with the people that you're serving. Then put them in the place where they want to be, but teach them the boundaries that you have. I think anybody that shows up saying they want to do something, they have something to give. But then you have to take time to find out, I just don't want a warm body, I want somebody. You know, I don't want you just to show up and just say you want to do something, because then you start hurting people. And that old adage that said, hurt people, hurt people. Well, you know what we teach, hurt people can help people, because you know what it means to hurt. So when we have people that want to support, want to help, want to make it a career, want to get into nonprofit work, want to be that solution, want to get into MPS schools, if anything that we've done, we're sitting down and talking to people about the real process. And again, somebody said, okay, I'm gonna check past your heart. I used to do early childhood education training for over 20 years. That's how I started out, and made curriculum based on all of that, because I missed the formidable time of my children's young lives when I was out there carousing and hanging out and being a victim and all those kind of things. So I wanted to give back what I lost. So in that, I learned how to build curriculum based on what I was missing with my children. But then I had to realize, when I was asking somebody else, what is it that you want to do? I had to really remember to listen. I say that a lot because it's true. If you sit in front of me and tell me you want to do something past loving the children, I said, well, I love the children, but I can spank mine, I can't spank these, so I have to get past loving the children. So you have to get past loving, wanting to help somebody and really support them, because in actuality, you can't help anybody that don't want your help.
That's true.
But you can support people to understand the process, and that's the important part. When we talked about harm reduction and we talked about trauma-informed care, I wanted to make sure I circled that and said, it's teaching in full circle. Because we talk about words again, and the words don't have meaning, then you can't possibly support the work that it takes to be able to be trauma-informed. Trauma-informed means getting to know the person that you working with that has the trauma, not based on what the book said, because guess what? Becky might be in that book, but Markeisha not in that book. You know, so we got to learn what Markeisha's problem is, and her struggle is, and what her trauma is, right? Because we can't base it on just what we learned in school. It's beyond that. It's a real person sitting in front of you. We got to learn what systemic things made them tick and how we can undo it and unlock it. But they have the key. We don't have it. They have it. We have to teach them how to find it. And then the other part about harm reduction, we say that a lot, but we cause more harm by passing judgment by the way we interact with people. We put more should on people than could. We should on people all the time. Stop shoulding on people, because you should do this, you should do that, you should do that. You could be doing this. Why didn't you do it? You know, but what about, did you know that you could? Did you know that this is a possibility? Did you know that you can? And here are some resources. Do you need support with this? Can I assist you with that? You know, those kind of things. That's when real change, it really happens, because now you're teaching people how to learn. You're not teaching people what you've learned. It's a big difference.
That's right. That's a good segue. I know we've had these conversations. Just because you've been through it doesn't mean, you know, we're running out, becoming an advocate, and now, but when we haven't done that work, right?
That's it. Yeah, we talk about all the time the wisdom of the thing, right? It takes a lot to know something, but it takes even more to have wisdom in it, right? You have learned behavior and processes that you go through after living through trauma, but the wisdom of it is how not to go back and how not to teach it forward. That's the wisdom of that thing. And me and Serena had tons of conversations in regards to, okay, we've been out here in the field for a long time, boots on the ground. And because we have, how do we teach that backwards to the ones that's coming behind us instead of teaching it forward to the ones that's leaving out the door, right? We have to teach it backwards, because the people that are coming behind us need to understand that these are some of the pitfalls and some of the travails and some of the crying nights and the wanting to give up and holding up the white flag and you know, closing the door, I ain't doing this no more, and all those things happen. But at the end of the day, when you wake up again, remember what you're doing it for. You've already received it. Now give it to somebody else. And that's the important part of it. That's when wisdom kicks in.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Come on around. Go that way. Go that way. You gonna walk in front of the camera. I know you don't see, technology, that little bitty thing with the green
My
light.
new
That's a
IT
whole
person.
camera.
That's my new IT
Yeah.
person sitting right there.
So, hello. Thank you all for everything, the gems. So, my question is, it's a lot of questions in one, so bear with me. So, my main thing is, I am a criminal justice major, and my goal is to become a sexual assault, domestic violence prosecutor. But the way God been working, he like, no, you're not gonna do that. So I feel like I need to be into advocacy because I have a lot of different training, a lot of unfortunate experience, and just different things. And I've been really, can you guys hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. My voice still kind of hoarse from the Millennium Tour. Y'all gotta excuse me. But I say that to say I've just been trying to figure out how to get my foot in the door, because I have a lot of mental health training. I have a lot of trauma training. I have my associates in criminal justice. I'm working on my bachelor's now. And when I think about going to law school, doing prosecution, like, yay, I want to do that. They need more of us doing that. But I have a 15 and a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old I care for as well. So it's like, I don't want to miss things. Like, I'm the very, very involved parent. So I'm trying to figure out, like, how I should go about getting my foot in, because sometimes I feel like I should do case management, because my daughter has siblings who just be going through stuff, and they like my kids now. So my home is like the safe haven for so many children, and I provide, so like, everybody call me for resources. It's like, I need to be doing something with this, because I have a testimony and I have things I could be helping doing, and I just don't know which way to go. I feel like I'm just kind of seesawing and teetering. So, and that's the questions for all of you guys, because all of you guys got some gems, and I'm just trying to figure out which direction to go for what I'm trying to do.
I feel like for me, we always invite people in just to get the process of what we're doing, again, to see where you can fit in at, because we work directly with women that hasn't made that decision yet to change. They may want to just spend a night for a moment. You could come in with some real wisdom about what could end up happening if they keep this behavior up legally. Because sometimes that's aloof to people. They're not thinking about all the tickets that's surmounted, about those prosecution picking up, paraphernalia and all those things that they end up getting while they're out there. And when they come in to change, those things start meeting them at the door. We used to have a legal clinic that came in, just legal consultation. It wasn't anything that gave merit to say, you said this and now you have to be stuck with it, but just giving that kind of advice,
Right.
giving that kind of, so once a week, maybe an hour or two that if you could dedicate coming to
Oh,
Fresh
yeah.
Start, we would love to have you.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll connect with you.
Okay. Trinity, do we have any questions or comments online?
It sounded like you're
Okay.
already doing the work, Miss Ebony. You're doing it. Just keep doing what you're doing. Your door is open. You can be that community mom. You can be that safe space. What do you need from us? Maybe you need us to drop off bags of chips or, something just to keep them coming. Our young people, everyone needs a safe space.
We got a question.
Come
Hello,
back this way.
everyone.
Come over this way.
Oh, come over this way.
Mhm.
I'm a parent peer trainer and a parent peer specialist, and I want to backtrack when you asked him the question about why so many men will blame women. I'm gonna be vulnerable at this time. I'm a boy mom, and I can say when my son started going to court, and it kept being for heinous crimes, and see when women and mothers start to heal, and then when you forgive and release, then you must take accountability for your own self. And within that moment, I knew, because he kept going to court, had nothing to do with an absent father. It had something to do with the mother. And I believe the way that my unhealed trauma affected my boys caused them to hate women. Because we teach our boys, honor thy mother and father. So therefore, because he couldn't say and have no outlet and misplaced anger, then it poured out into the community. So I'm gonna speak to it from that point of view, what I accepted on my behalf.
Okay.
So with that being said, I knew I had some great men I had kids by, but because of what I seen and learned behavior, I made it hard for them men. So I wanted to be able to be, from that perspective, I'm just gonna be vulnerable and say what my accountability is when it comes to the community of half the time why black men is scared because they are protectors. So they think by being silent, they still protecting their mother.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Man. Yeah.
That was something right there.
I claimed her.
Well, I'm gonna say what I say to all the brothers in the group, man. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing that. And I'll tell you, believe it or not, that's healing for me to hear that.
Yeah, that was good. Mm. Okay.
So I don't know what type of question this will be, or maybe just a comment. How we talking about everybody, the survivors directly who went through the abuse or assault or anything, but what about the people around them that experience it? Like, how do you, or any programs for them type of people, like the kids who seen their mom or their dad going through anything, or stuff like, things like that?
I got the mic again. Hot mic. You know, we do that as well again because, again, we teach in full circle. Not only am I a direct service provider for the youth that are in care for being commercially sexually exploited or at-risk behaviors, we also talk to the siblings and the parents that don't understand, kind of like Al-Anon does for those that experience those that have alcoholism, and then they have the people that have lived vicariously through their alcoholic person. We also want to make sure that we are, you know, supporting those that go back to the households. We do realize for certain, if you send a child back home that experienced your care and learn how to deal with themselves, but they in back where they came from, they were causing trauma, the person at home, if they haven't healed, the trauma is going to begin again, because everybody in that household needs to have healing based upon what they've been through. That
That's
one
what I was
person
thinking.
affected that person, everybody in that house, not just themselves. So we have to heal outwardly for the whole family.
Okay, that's good, because I was thinking, you know, those are maybe the ones that are becoming those perpetrators,
Yep,
because
sometimes.
they quiet as well.
Yep. Yep. You live what you see sometimes.
So, Serena, we are almost, time go fast. Remember we had the meeting, I said, it's gonna go fast, it's gonna go fast. And so we are almost at the end. You wanna wrap something up, give some final words from the panelists and all of that kind of stuff?
Let's get some final words from the panel, and then we'll close it out. Start with Patrice.
As the young lady was asking a question about families, I always like to say healing is not linear. You know, it comes in ebbs and flows, and we heal in community, not in isolation. Like you talked about, Nancy was just saying, our youth go back into homes. So that entire family needs to heal or learn, have some education on how to deal with those things. So just remember, you will have good days, you will have bad days, but it doesn't mean that your healing process has stopped. Know that it's not linear, that it'll take some dips, there'll be some valleys, and there'll be some mountaintops. So just be patient and kind with yourself as you continue to heal and grow.
Awesome. I'm actually going to read from this paper. You know why? Because I put it on here for a closing remark that I believe that should be said. To everyone listening, survivors, allies, community leaders, men, women, and youth, I want you to leave here with one unshakable truth. You are not alone. You are valued. You are loved by God. You are stronger than your circumstances and have the power to drive change. If you are a survivor, I see you. I honor your journey. I stand with you. If you're an ally, I challenge you. Use your voice, your resources, your prayers, and your hands to build a safer world. We can end sexual violence in our lifetimes. We can build communities where every person is safe, heard, and free We can create legacies of healing instead of histories of pain. I am Nancy Yarbrough. I'm a woman of God. I'm a survivor. I'm a driver of change. And I'm an activist. I'm your sister. And today, tomorrow, always, I believe you.
All right.
That was beautiful, like for real. Like I was looking at my notes to see if I wrote anything like that.
That's funny.
Safe to say well, I mean, I just echo what I said earlier. You know, just as well-meaning men, we have to be part of the solutions. You know, we have to learn, and I like what you said earlier too about those who came before us. You know, the idea and the ideology is, you know, Sankofa, and you know, like, and that's why I always say building stronger cycles instead of breaking cycles, because it's a lot. There's a lot that we have already that you know, like we have a lot more than we need. You know, but one of the things that we need is, like you said, just imparting that on those who come after us, and that's a big part of, you know, solutions. And you know, ounce of prevention, worth a pound of cure. You know, just really being able to impart better. You know, I can just speak for, as a man. You know, just imparting, you know, better environments and practices and norms on men. You know, and you know, I've committed to that, and our organization is committed to that. I also want to say, you know, just in changing narratives, you know, like I said, you know, we better together. You know, just co-parenting narratives as solutions. You know, like just really being able just to find better ways to shield our children from this trauma that they experience, and you know, stop being so selfish. Just find ways out of that, man. Yeah, man. But lastly, yeah, we are, you know, we just announced the winners of the third annual Fathers Making Progress Awards, and you know, I was just actually reminded of that when I started thinking about narrative. Reason that's important is because every year we honor 6 men and 1 woman, you know, our co-parents of the year awards, you know, from our community, you know, who, I mean, sometimes they're everyday folks, sometimes they're folks doing work in the community, but they all just have the story that needs to be shared, because one thing I can say is, like, the nonsense is loud. The nonsense is loud. The BS is loud, you know. So it's just like, you know, we have to applaud and we have to highlight even louder, you know. So that's why that's important. And thank you all for coming. Thank you all for having me. You know, I just feel honored to be the guy on this panel and being able to lend perspective. And let me stop taking no space. Here you go. Oh, you got your own.
I'm just reflecting on everyone's responses and questions today, and I think the common thing that I think about when we talk about formal support systems and informal support systems and how we can be there for survivors, and the common thread in response that I see is just listening, just being open and available for people who've gone through trauma.
I just want to say thank you to, this is my support team. These are, call on them, we work together, but we play together, we support each other, and surround yourself with those that are, you know, doing the work that where you're trying to go. You can't do it by yourself, wouldn't want to do it by yourself. It's a lot, the ups, the downs. I think we talked about that. This is April, it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month. It's a heavy month, just even having that title, Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And we chose the end of the month, the 30th, to do this work, to release and have it our time to really just support survivors and those that are doing the work. These are our providers, counseling, advocacy, the men, the medical. This is where we can point people in that direction that need that healing, they need that wellness. We hope that this is just day one. We do have a couple of things coming up. Tomorrow we're going to be learning some activities and techniques and skills for healing and wellness. We'll be at 2107 North Martin Luther King Drive at 5 or 5:30, 5 to 7 tomorrow. And we're going to be learning some activities of healing and wellness for coping. Sometimes you just have those moments where things are anxiety or you're stressed out. This will help you with those moments when you're not able to get somewhere else. It's just things that you can do by yourself. And then on Wednesday, we are going to be celebrating. It's called a celebration of you. And that's just an evening of food, fun, music, just to end the month out with something special for those that have gone through it, or maybe someone you love has gone through it. We're going to be honoring survivors, providers, and the voices of healing and wellness. So thank you guys so much for today. The panelists, absolutely amazing. We could go on and on. This is like, you guys have answered so many questions and brought so much joy and so much knowledge to this room. Thank you.
Well, I am very honored to be sitting here with all of you guys. I've learned a lot of things listening to everybody, even the questions and stuff. So with my show, I do 4 shows a month, and 2 of them are focused on dating, relationships, and sex. And so one of the things that I appreciate about you bringing this to my platform is because my audience out there needs to know that, you know, this, and probably a lot of them know it more than I think they know, right? Because you guys work with a clientele, and it's everybody. Like you just said, from 3 months to 97 years old, you know, it's everybody. But I think that as a lot of people, single, married, whatever, go through different relationship situations, and we go through dating situations, it's good to know that when or if you get into a situation, there is a support system in place. And especially here in Milwaukee, you know where you can turn to. You know, you have a resource. And so this show will be broken down into 4. Each of your topics will become its own show, and you'll be able to share it with your followers or your network as well. So that'll be really cool. So I thank you all for tuning in, and thank you all for coming out. This has been Let's Talk About It with Xavier Fox. Make sure you tune in on Sunday. We will be in Chicago with a live audience on Sunday from 2 to 6. So be sure you tune in. X Fox Entertainment on YouTube. And so until the next time.